examine Vladimir Prop's work. So one of the things that professors do agree on, and academics, is the work that Vladimir Prop has created. He figured out through studying Russian folk tales that there are only 31 plot points that are used again and again and again in stories. Now, I say 31 plot points, but he actually takes his plot point A and creates creates 8 and 8A. So really, in my opinion, there's 32, but he sees a relationship between his A and his 8 and 8A. So what he has done with these, what I like to think of as these plot points, are their archetypes. Archetypes are universal patterns or symbols or something that, a word that stands in for the essence of an overall species, genre, the list goes on. So to help you out, the word, I'm trying to figure out like a good example for you. So a great example, I'm surrounded by it, excuse me, is the word plant. Plant stands in for many green objects, right? But there are so many different plants within the kingdom of plants. And so I can say plant, but in your head, you might think of this calla lily. And maybe you don't think it's a plant because it has flowers. Or maybe you think of a ficus tree, or this Monstera delicioso. All of these are plants. But let's have you go into your mind and take a moment. I want you to think about a chair. When you close your eyes, what do you see in your mind's eye for a chair? Great. In my mind, I see a very lush, walnut-carved throne with purple velvet. And you can go to many different people, and everybody else, when you say the word chair, is going to come up with a different idea in their mind. So some person might think of a black office chair. Another person might think of just a simple wood stool with, I don't know, like a shaker ladder chair. So there's just so many chairs. So that's what an archetype is. And so when you look at Vladimir Prop's plot points, that's like a tongue twister, you can think of each of those as an archetype. And every screenwriter colors that plot point in a different way. So as you're examining the birds, you're going to be figuring out which of the plot points Alfred Hitchcock uses to tell his story. The other part of Vladimir Prop's work that I find interesting is he's also looked at all of the characters in Russian folk tales. And what I find interesting is he's only found that there are 8 characters only. And of course, we've all seen movies where there's more than 8 characters. But Vladimir Prop is smart. He says that more than one character can stand in for one of these archetypes. So you may have a whole village of people who are donors. They give some magical agent to our hero. Now, when I look at Vladimir Prop's archetypal characters, I do feel a bit of alarm as a feminist supporter, for he has put together, one of his characters is the father and his daughter. That's one character, because if you think about old world thinking, the father owns the daughter, and the daughter is connected to the father, and without a man, does a woman really exist? Yuck! That's like terrible. But that's in Vladimir Prop's work, and it's definitely to be criticized and to be talked about. But that's what he found in the different Russian folktales he was looking at. Did he have a problem with this relationship? I honestly don't know. And that's why we talk about it and try to understand it. What's also missing from the archetypes is there's no mother. Where is the mother in this? Don't women have agency? And to be honest with you, I've only read a couple of Russian folktales, but as I'm talking to you about this, I really want to read a lot more Russian folktales to understand why he came up with these archetypal characters. So I'm not going to go through each of the characters for you, the donor, the helper, the father, the false hero, because I need you to do some reading. I cannot always be telling you everything that's inside the book. And I think in a traditional classroom, your job is to read the book and come in knowing the main ideas and being able to discuss them. So I've helped you a little bit with the donor, but you can figure out who the helper is and the false hero and the villain through reading Graham Turner's work. As I was about to edit this instructional video together, it hit me that there's a third thing that I should talk about, and that is the work of Claude Levi-Strauss. Movies, and realize that movies also function on binary opposition. Binary opposition is two opposing forces. Oftentimes we think of good and evil. Some of the classics: man versus nature, black versus white, man versus women, man versus man, and to me, kind of the most insidious, the one that is maybe the most problematic, because it actually brings us back to man versus woman and black versus white, is us versus them. And them gets me thinking about science fiction. And science fiction leads me to the them as the alien. But I feel the alien actually is an archetype for cultures that are opposed to the privileged, or that the privilege gets a lot out of, but sees that them is separate from us. And so that's something to really think about as you're watching different movies. And then when I think about binary opposition, I also think about cause and effect. Cause and effect is what structures film, as well as structuring the play or the musical. Anything that has that performative, we have this cause and effect. You don't find cause and effect too much in poetry. You do find some cause and effect in essay writing, and there is cause and effect in the novel, but the novel goes on for so long about the inside of the character's thought process and describing these great vistas that the novelist wants to write about. But you really feel the cause and effect in a film or a theater piece. And cause and effect is just like the dynamite I started this video off with. One thing ignites the next thing, and that thing ignites, which ignites the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And so movies are a series of cause and effects as well. So, I think this is a good time for you to summarize all that was covered in this video. What were the 4 big topics? And I would say my very last one was like a minor, like we have 1, 2, 3, and 3B, because it was kind of minor. So try to summarize that. And now, can you remember narrative structure without looking at your notes? Do you have the order? Go ahead, take a moment. So, I hope this information has really helped you. I definitely want you to read chapter 4, Narratology, because I've gone over the main points for you to make reading that chapter easier, but you really need to digest it. And maybe I would suggest look at Aristotle, or one of my favorite books on narrative structure is Backwards and Forwards, easily found on Amazon.com. So I hope learning about narrative structure is going to enhance your ideas about what you're viewing. Have a great week of learning, and I look forward to being with you next week. Bye-bye.